Greetings and welcome to my garden. My name is Burton Eubank and I'm here in Inverness, and I live in a beautiful place, and I'd love to come and show you my garden. So take a little walk with me and we'll have a little look at my garden.
All right.
Come on in.
Thank you. Got it. We seem to be walking through a little maze here.
Well, the idea is to have a sort of a labyrinth because it makes my small yard seem a lot larger, and it's a beautiful place. I also hang my laundry right here on this line outdoors, so it gets the fresh air and all the smells of the beautiful roses and everything that's around. So and it keeps it out of view of the neighbors. As you're coming in here, you get to see my avocado tree and so many other different plantings that I have. And right here I have a bunch of potatoes that are just about ready. And that'll be one of the discussions that we'll have today as we're talking about things. I'd like to talk about what I'm growing for the winter time, and a little bit about seed collection, and a little bit about grafting, and making more fruit in a small space, or more food in a small space. And actually, if you look over there where you were just looking, you can see that I'm kind of doing a food forest. I have stuff right on the ground there, those potatoes that are growing right there. And then I have stuff in boxes. And then up above I have, fruit trees. So pretty much everywhere that you look within the yard, all the different spaces, you'll see that there's different things growing in layers and at different places, intervals of their life. So you have brand new stuff to very old stuff that's now gone to seed. And it's the whole life cycle right here in one space. I'd like to start off over on this other bed over here, because this is where I have some brand new starts that I've just put in the ground over the last week. Basically, I'm starting all my greens for the winter crop. So right now, if I want to eat food in the wintertime, I need to be thinking about that by planting right now. And if I get all my seeds and stuff into the ground, and my potatoes and all that kind of stuff, then I'll have one more opportunity between now and January to get a whole new set of greens and potatoes and all the things that I want to eat just during the wintertime. So, and luckily up here, I don't have frost, so much of that stuff will go all the way through the winter and into the next spring until I can start planting again for the spring and summer. So I'd like to take us over here to this other bed. Actually, come this way.
Shall I follow you this way?
Yeah. So right here, I have a bed that I just recently took out everything that was kind of dead for the summer. My earlier summer crop that was in this bed right here was kind of dead at that point, so I took it all out. And then I just planted a whole bunch of different varieties of kale in this. I have dino kale and some regular kale. And I believe I also put some collard greens and or broccoli in there. And I'm not sure which of the two because I did not mark them. But it doesn't make a difference because all of these things will produce a variety of different greens that I'll be able to eat throughout the winter time. And you can see that they're very, very, very small at this time. But, that's the thing. And I already have some that's ready over in the next boxes. So this will be the next season that I've just planted here. And this is just going to be greens right here. It's kind of in a nice shady spot so that these things are able to get a little protection from the intense sun of the late summer. We're now in the Indian summer, we call it here in Inverness, where it's a little extra warm. And I'm up kind of in a banana belt of the area because this is a little warmer up here in the heat inversion than down below in the valleys. So my garden may be different from other gardens here in Inverness. Anyway, this is just this is a way of protecting stuff that's brand new, is to give it a little shade. So this time of the year, I'll plant stuff kind of in a shadier area. So in this box right here, I'm just getting finished with kind of cleaning it up and prepping it for the winter time. I've just cut these collards right here, which later on I'm going to do a demonstration of how I save the seeds from plants. But if you look, there's all this dead stuff looking on here, and this dead looking stuff is actually little pods that have seeds inside. So I let things grow all the way to seed. And in part by doing this, I'm actually able to grow and collect seed that I've grown for years and years and years. I began gardening when I was 6 years old. And so all of these things have acclimated to this environment, to my garden, since I was 6 years old. And part of that process is that these plants are hardy for Inverness specifically because I keep regrowing them over and over and collecting these seeds. And this bed actually I built for my son. So you can see there's a little snail over on the far end, just to remind me that not only do I cultivate food, but I also cultivated a human. And he's a wonderful human being. He's made a huge contribution to the world. Currently, he's spending a lot of his time making cheese for Cowgirl Creamery. He's one of the head cheese makers there, and he loves doing that. But I tried to inspire him to garden by giving him his own garden bed right here. And as you can see, I have all different kind of things still in here. This is some celery. I have some parsley, flat leaf parsley, a nice squash plant, and artichokes that are now going into flower so that they can produce more seed. And then these collard greens. And as this box starts to mature, in the empty spaces I'll plant some more things for my winter crop. So in this, I would probably go to the trouble to plant a clove of garlic every 4 inches along the whole outside of the thing. Each clove of garlic will make a whole head of garlic. So if I plant these cloves of garlic in November 4 inches apart, then in April I'll be able to harvest whole heads of garlic. And that'll take me all the way through the rest of the year and until next November, when I'll then plant some more. And if I want to do 2 crops of garlic, I could plant another crop in April as I'm taking out the old ones, the ones that have just become mature. So it's a way to continuously have garlic, and the garlic helps protect against pests in your garden because the pests don't really like the garlic a lot. And then in the middle part, what I'll probably do is I'll plant a lot of onions. So I collect some seeds from my onions, and then I'll grow those seeds throughout the area in the middle, just to have as many onions as I possibly can have. And this is a good box for that because the leaves from this plum tree right above it will go away during the winter time. It's deciduous, and then it'll get all the sunlight that it needs during the winter time, and the shoots will do just fine during the winter time. The great thing about garlic and onions and potatoes is that you don't have to do anything with them. Once you plant them in the winter time, the rains take care of it. You don't have to do anything else, and you just wait until they're ready to eat. The potatoes, they're ready because the stalks turn yellow and the leaves stop collecting the sunlight. And the garlic and onions, it's the same thing. The stalks turn yellow, and that's when you can tell that they're no longer receiving the energy from the sun. So
To plant the garlic, do you have to wait for the little green shoots to start sprouting
you
out of
do
it?
not. You can actually take just break open a head of garlic and break off all the little each clove. Plant each clove of between 4 and 6 inches apart, and each clove will become a head 6 months later. And you can use any kind of garlic. You can use that small garlic that's very strong and potent, or you can use that big elephant garlic. I like to have a variety of both. Sometimes I'm in the mood for something very sharp, and that smaller garlic tends to be a little sharper. The elephant garlic has a lot of flavor, but is not quite as potent. But you get a lot more of it because it's larger cloves per on each head. So a variety of different things. Same with the onions. I like to have some red onions, some yellow onions, and some white onions. So I'll plant seeds from each of those that I've grown and collected and saved. And that way, if I put them in November, all throughout the rainy season, they're getting all the water they can possibly get, which hopefully we get a lot of rain this year. I hope and pray that we get a lot of rain this year because we really need it. Not just for the plants, but for the whole forest in general and for the earth in general. But anyway, so that's kind of what I do for the winter time is a lot of potatoes, garlic, onions, and then leafy green vegetables. And I expand where I grow my potatoes during this time of the year because during the summer I want to have room for tomatoes and peppers and all the other things that I like to grow. And potatoes sort of take a back seat at that point. I have 3 or 4 different areas that are specific for potatoes, but during the wintertime I try to make a lot more. It really reduces my food costs, and it makes me feel really great to know where my food is specifically coming from. When I can go out and look in my yard for what I want to eat and something presents itself. Like for instance, there's a couple potatoes that have dug themselves up this morning, and I think it was actually the quail, but we won't go there. But to me, when an animal or the garden itself presents some food to me, then that's when I know that it's ready to eat, and that's what I'll take in to make my next meal. So it's great.
I noticed over here the potatoes are mounded up here. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So one of the methods that I use for planting potatoes, and I think that this is beneficial, is I'll lay down some straw, and then I'll take the eyes of the potatoes. I'd only cut the eyes out, and I eat the rest of the potato. And I'll lay the eyes out on the bed of straw, and then I'll cover that over with some soil. And it makes the harvesting a lot easier, because then I can literally reach my hand in here. Actually, I'll do this right now, but I can reach my hand in here and pull up these plants, and then I'm not digging with a tool, and I can get fresh potatoes right out of the ground. And I could tell these were ready because the stalks had turned yellow, and so these potatoes will be a part of my lunch or my dinner this today. And I have different variety of potatoes in here. So I like to do the red potatoes, the purple potatoes, the Yukon Gold potatoes, and just regular white potatoes. And every once in a while I'll make some bacon potatoes in one of the bigger beds. But this whole box, which right now you can see it looks in a place of decline. Well, that's because I'm letting all these plants grow to seed. I have right here in front of us some dino kale and some broccoli. So I'll be collecting those seeds and putting them into an envelope, writing what the plant is so that I know what kind of seeds they are and what year I harvested them. And by doing that and keeping them in a paper envelope, I can keep track of what plant that they came from and what year it was. And I know that seeds are best when they are used within the first 2 years, but you can keep on using them forever.
How do you keep your seeds? What is your process of seed collecting?
Well, I actually like to collect them and put them in a paper envelope. So like I was just mentioning, so I'll do a little demonstration for you if you want to come over this way. I mentioned that I pulled out some of these plants earlier today. So earlier I took out these collard greens. So I'll just grab this one right here, and here I have a paper envelope right here. It's really important probably to do the process of writing down what it is before you put the seeds in there, so that you don't end up crushing the seeds. So in this one, I'll just write collards, and then the year 2020. And you can either go to the trouble of taking the seeds out of these pods, or literally just break the pods off and put them right into the envelope and then open them. The pods are kind of like their own envelope, but it keeps them safe. And I'll just be able to open those pods when I'm ready to plant. There. Signed, sealed, and delivered. So that's my collards from 2020. And next year when I'm ready to plant some collards, I'll just open this up, break open those seed pods, and carefully place them either in the garden bed itself or in little containers to give them a little head start, depending on how early I plant these. And I know these collards are really good because here's the plant that they came from. And I've been eating off of this, and they're just absolutely delicious. You can't have too many greens as far as I'm concerned. Keeps us healthy, keeps us strong, keeps us vital, and helps our immune system. And by growing it right here in the garden, collecting the seed, and then regrowing it in the garden, it acclimates to this area. So this is my seed collection method, and I do this with everything. I always put it in a paper envelope. I've been led to believe that seeds need to breathe, and a lot of times when people put them in a Ziploc bag or seal it in that capacity, it makes the seeds not as vital for the next season. So this is my method. Plus, it's very easy. Paper envelopes are a dime a dozen, and it's really easy to write on there what it is and to store these, because if they're all the same size packages, you can put them in a file cabinet or wherever you want to keep these kind of things. I keep them in my kitchen right by my stove, so I remind myself as I'm eating the food to constantly be looking at and thinking about what I want to grow next. So I'll keep those out of the sun for now. All right. All right, here we are. We're going to have a little segment about grafting. And what I've done is I've taken some branches off of a tree over this way. So we'll come and take a little look. I have a peach tree that I planted a number of years ago. And I took a couple of the branches from that this morning. When you're grafting, the best thing is obviously when there are no leaves on the plant. So I would say to cut your branches that you're going to graft in December or January. And this is definitely very much the wrong time of year to do grafting, but I'd like to at least do a demonstration so that you can kind of see what to do when we get to that time of the year. So I've taken these branches from my peach tree right here, and I'm going to walk over to my nectarine tree. Peaches and nectarines have the same kind of seed, and so basically it's easy to graft like kind of seeds. So anything that's got a really hard seed like that, you would be able to graft onto each other. So right over here, I want you to take a close look at this branch. So it's really important when grafting not to use this dead dry wood, but to cut a branch that has sort of this greener color. This branch right here is new growth from this year, so it's living. Versus if you look up here, that's a lot darker and much harder wood. So in the case of grafting, what you'd want to do is you want to find a branch that has sort of this greenness to it. It's a fresh growth branch, and one of the branches that you're going to graft on there has to be similar in size, as close as possible in size, so that it'll attach and that the cambium will match up. And when the cambium matches up and you've attached it, then basically this will become a viable branch. So I'm looking at this one. It seems to be approximately the same size. And if you look right here carefully, there's a little node and another little node right there. So I like this little node. So what I would do, this node is basically a really great place for a connection because it can also send roots. If I was going to try and root this, I would root it right where the node is, but I could also attach it to this tree right where the node is, and it's a place where it's going to want to suck some of the moisture from this other tree once the tree comes back to life in the spring. So I just shaved that little node off, and I'm going to shave the other side, and basically this branch that I'm going to add to the tree, I will be making into a little wedge, being careful to keep the cambium on the outside so that it can then be matched up with the cambium from the receiving branch. So this one I make into a wedge.
So you're just removing the surface
on two sides, and then the other two sides, the slenderest part of it, I leave the bark on there so that this bark will then be matched to the bark of this. And with this one, I'm going to cut this branch and make a little wedge in there, or a V in there, so that this wedge will go in there and match. And it's really important to get all the way to the end of what you cut on this and match it with the cut in there. And you'll notice I'm wearing a glove on my left hand, a really heavy duty glove. When you do this next part, if you don't have a glove on and your knife slips, well, let me just tell you, you should wear a glove. Yeah. So and again, this is the wrong time of year to do this, but it's really important to get the same size branch, and it would be very easy for me to cut a slit into this and put this thing in here. And just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and do this at this time of the year. Again, this is something that you want to do during the dormant season, December, January, when the trees have no leaves at all and they're basically asleep. So to do this, I'm going to make a nice cut, with my clippers right here, right below a node, and very carefully with my gloved hand, come on behind me so you can see this, I'm going to cut right into here, right? And I've just made a nice deep cut there. And I'm going to put this piece right here very carefully into here, and I'm going to line it up so that the end of this comes in here and these pieces of the bark is all lined up. So if you take a really close look where my glove is, you can see that it all lines up. And where this is, it'll heal over when it starts to grow in the springtime. And when it heals over, then this branch will become a part of this tree, and I'll have peaches on my nectarine tree. Now I'm going to take some electrical tape and I'm going to wrap where this is to hold it in place, because right now, obviously, with that split there, this tree cannot hold this the way that it is. So very carefully, I'll pull some electrical tape out here. And you can use anything. A lot of people use grafting wax, and I don't find that that's absolutely necessary. But that's another way of doing this to get a successful thing. Oops. Hard for me to hold this at the same time, but it's okay. Start my wrap a little past where the graft is going to go, so that I onto some better wood. Oops. Having a little bit of a hard time there. Yeah, it's because this branch is a little large here. I'm going to cut some of this branch off because I don't really need this much of it. Make the demonstration. And I would actually use a smaller branch anyway, because it's just going to be a lot easier to work with. And then very carefully wrap the electrical tape around the section that you are trying to graft on, making sure that these ends stay matched, so that the bark lines up with the bark of the other one. And again, you're doing this in December and January when the trees are asleep, so that that when the trees wake up later on in the year, that this basically assumes that it's on the same tree that it came from. And now I'm going to have peaches growing on my nectarine tree.
But the peaches will just grow off of that branch,
off of this
correct?
branch. That's right. The rest of the tree will be nectarine, but this branch and any branches that come from this branch later on will be that specific type of peach, which is a delicious peach.
Burton, you have an apple tree over there that's growing multiple kinds of apples.
That's true. So,
Go look at that?
yeah, let's actually take a look while I'm talking about it. So, one of the things is that stone fruits match really well with stone fruits. So with a cherry plum tree like this one, I can put every different kind of stone fruit. So on this tree, I actually have apricots and plums and cherries and all kinds of different stone fruits. Well, it's the same thing with apple trees. So apple trees will take a graft from another apple, and I can show you where I've done this in the past. As you notice today, I use some white tape. Every year I change the color of the tape, or if I'm doing multiple grafts of different fruits onto one tree, then I'll use different colored tape to indicate what I've done. But this is my color for 2020, is the white tape. This last year I used blue. So on this tree I grafted on, this is a white delicious, I call it. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's a super albino white apple. And it's just one of the tastiest apples I've ever eaten in my life. And that's this blue graft. And you can see actually the healing process. Remember I told you about that V? If you come and take a close look, you can see where I cut the notch right here, and how that's healed back together. So this is a very vital branch. It's got leaves all over it. Well, the year before, I grafted right here this Arkansas black. So this is a Gala apple tree. It shouldn't have Arkansas blacks on it, but it does, because I grafted those on. And so this is another graft that's 2 years old that has healed. This used to have red tape on it from the previous year, from 2018. And so that was these Arkansas black apples. And these apples are really great because they actually preserve for a very long time. So when you're thinking about grafting, basically, if you know somebody who is growing a really great kind of fruit in their orchard and you want some of their fruit, ask them in December if you can cut a branch from their tree and make sure that it matches the same size as the tree that's receiving it. Cut that wedge in there, and then cut a V slot, and then next thing you know, you can put a little piece of tape around it, and in the springtime it'll come to life just as if it's a part of that tree, and it's always been there. And if you put it out as a lateral branch instead of a vertical branch, the lateral branches will actually grow fruit. The vertical branches are trying to grow up, and it'll make more lateral branches. So something that I'm learning all the time. I learn something new every single day from gardening, and my mind is open to that. And sometimes I do it by trial and error and find out, and sometimes it's the failures. And so the failures are good too. It's good to do enough experimentation that you don't feel bad about a failure.
Yeah.
So here we are having a conversation about the next segment here, and we looked over and this parsley was being attacked from beneath. Well, it's a strange thing. I should be really mad about that because that means that there's probably a gopher in this box. But if you look further down the box and elsewhere in my yard, I've planted enough that if the gopher takes some, there'll still be some for me. And this is done anyway. It's just about to go to seed. And all I want to do is collect some seeds. So as long as I have one plant that goes to seed, this gopher can have this one. Go right ahead, my friend. I grow enough for everybody, you know? So right here, I actually took a sprout from the Gala apple tree over there, planted it in the ground, and then I attached right here at the bottom one of those red delicious, or Arkansas black, I'm sorry, the Arkansas black apples. So this whole trunk is the Arkansas black. Unfortunately, these are part of the original Gala, so I should probably cut those to get rid of those, and I'll do that right now since I'm thinking about it, because that's the thing about gardening, you have to do it when you're thinking about it. So I don't want to have any of those shoots coming up from the bottom. These are the Gala apple that I originally planted, but I grafted early on this Arkansas black. So this whole branch coming up is an Arkansas black. Well, right here, I grafted on one of those white delicious, is what I call them. And because it's got a lateral branch, all of this was full of apples about a month ago. And I ate those apples and they were amazing. So this is something I grafted on last year, and it produced fruit that I ate this year. So
That's
good
amazing.
thing. And right below it, it's kind of interesting that we're right here, but right below it, I have a mango tree. Now people say, well, would you grow a mango tree in Inverness? I mean, it's not tropical, but right now we all know that the climate is starting to change, and I'm anticipating us moving into more of a tropical environment. So I have mango right here. Over here I have papaya and Suriname cherry. And these things that I'm trying to grow, I'm doing this in anticipation of the times when things are going to change. And if the climate changes, then we have to be resilient and we have to change with the climate. So here we are in a beautiful place. I live in a banana belt. If you gaze right through here, I even have banana trees. So I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking 10 steps ahead. A gardener has to always do that. We don't think about the food that we want to eat today and plant the seed today. We think about the food that we want to eat 3 months from now, 3 years from now, 30 years from now. So if I plant this tree, I may never eat from it, but it doesn't make a difference because maybe my son will or somebody else will in the future. And that's how we have to think about things.
Perfect. Thank you, Burton.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.